Alright, it is December 19th. It's day 22. It's 55 degrees outside. That's late today. It's almost 5 o'clock and I'm not quite home. I got another 10 minutes to go or so. Today was a good day. Started off, got up a little bit earlier than I did yesterday. Made it to work on time. I was only a couple minutes late yesterday, but I worked pretty well throughout the whole course of the day. Started out, just loaded up some implements so that way we could dig and backfill. Well, we're actually done digging. My boss went and bought us some more 2-inch conduits. We were out of 2-inch conduits. We picked up some couplings. I accidentally grabbed the wrong couplings. I grabbed 1.5 inches. I walked out to the truck, set them down, and Jose noticed that they were too small. I saw a 2-inch box and I grabbed the couplings without even thinking about them. So filled up a box with stuff and went out to the site, and essentially what happened was we have two runs of 2-inch 2-inch runs of conduit that were running from one building to the next, and they're going to carry data lines. They're going to carry IT lines. They're going to carry internet lines, or Ethernet cable. They're going to carry, I think, some telecom cable. Anyway, so we have about a couple months ago, before I even started with the company, they ran these 2-inch lines from the high school underneath where this pad is going to be, and they just left it setting because they weren't sure where they were going to go. So there's just been a piece of 1.5 inch conduit sticking up out of the ground saying that there's 2 inches underneath it, and it's been sitting that way for a couple of months. So they had this run this way, and what we did is we started all the way over here and we ran it this direction, and we got them to meet up. Well, where they meet up is actually going to be a pull point. We could I think we decided that we were under the 360 degrees with that. Excuse me. I think we decided that we were under the 360 degrees with that rule where a pull box would be required, but we still went ahead and are going to do one, which is not going to be for a couple of months. But so essentially we had two pieces of pipe here, 2 pieces of pipe here, and so what we did is we turned them up into a 90, so we've got 2 90s and 2 straight shots coming up out of the ground. My boss then took a piece of, I think, 3/4 inch conduit, a 10-foot piece, and stuck it down in the ground, painted it red, put a piece of tape on there, and wrote on the tape so that way we knew what it was. And so now at the edge of where this pad is going to be, there are just 4 pieces of conduit stuck up. And me and Jose, we weren't slow by any means. We were just meticulous to make sure that to make sure that the pieces of conduit laid right next. It's hard to show at that angle, but they laid flat up against each other like this, so that way all 4 pieces of conduit were coming out straight. And on 2 sides, there's 2 of them. On one side are going to be going to the high school. The other 2 are going to be going to this field house. There's going to be enough room in there for a drip loop. So we finished that. We backfilled it, and we were going to clean it up and get it nice and even. And my boss said, "Don't worry about it. Students aren't coming through here. This is just a work area. They're gonna regrade all this anyway, so just kind of leave it." So we did leave a little bit of a hump, but that wasn't really our decision. From there, we went to lunch. We went and had Burger King. It's 2 days before payday, so I'm trying to stretch that dollar as long as it goes. Apprentice wages aren't quite what they should be, so I went to Burger King, had some nuggets and a Coke, and I think for I ate for less than $4. No, I ate for just a little over $4, which was cool. After that, we went over to this other pad, which is the middle school, which we have been working on. I've been doing prefab, and I did a couple of different things. So the first thing I did was my boss and Jose just stood around talking forever. So I stood around and kind of chatted with them and let them, we discussed what we needed to do in the short term and the long term, and I make sure to stay there for those conversations. I don't check out. I don't open up my phone. I don't turn and look around. My beard's really bothering me. I gotta kind of straighten that out because, man, it's coming. It was getting tucked into my shirt. Anyway, so I try to stay present for conversations between Jose and my boss, which I don't need to be privy to. Like, a lot of stuff just goes over my head. But so we went to the middle school. You know what? I'm going to pause before I start talking about the middle school, because there was a whole other process in there. We did UFI grounding today, which I'm not exactly sure what that means, but essentially what we did was we took this carbon mold, which stood about maybe 2 by 2 by 10, and he stripped a piece of 3/0 copper, put it up to a number 5 piece of rebar, and he put the rebar here, the copper here in this mold. He put down a little tin thing down in here, which I assume it's tin because brass is copper and tin, and so that would turn it into brass. Because he mentioned brass. I needed to ask about that, but I'm not real up on my metallurgy. So anyway, so he does that, and they put thermite in the top, and they light the thermite, and it heats it up to 2,000 degrees, welds it together, so that way the ground rod is sufficiently clamped on. Now, it called for CAD, it's called CAD welding. It called for CAD welding in the specs. That's specifically what it asked for. So that's what we did. Now, I don't know if that's a spec thing. I don't know if that's an everyday thing. I just have to get an Article 250 and read it, and Article 250 is big. So it's definitely something I want to look at eventually, but not at the moment. I don't want to get good on grounding right this second, because there's a lot of other stuff for me to look into. But that was really cool to see, because I'd never done it before. I'd never even really heard about it. I'm sure something came up in school and I just passed right through it without thinking about it. Then okay, so now back to the elementary school. Back to the middle school. We went to the middle school, and they had put up door frames and put blocks around the door frames. And my boss explained to me that these door frames had these solenoids on them, which because they're like FEMA rated, they're storm doors. They have solenoids built into the door frame, and so we had to run power into the door frame. And so on the door frame, on the one of the sides, depending on which way you look at it, there's a box where the latch will go into. And I knocked it, so we knocked out that 1/2-inch knockout, and he was kind of showing me. The problem is the knockout is here, and the hole to get to the knockout is down here. There's about a 6-inch gap, and so you have to hold that you have to hold the I just totally spaced. You have to hold the lock nut up there so you can twist on this liquid tight. Let's see, it's liquid tight flexible conduit, because it's not metal, it's just flexible, liquid tight flexible conduit. So anyways, you have to have this connector for this liquid tight flexible conduit. And so my boss and Jose were going through different ways to do it, and they said, you're just gonna have to figure it out. You're gonna have to take the time, and it might take you all day, but we have to get a connector in here, otherwise mud's gonna get down in there. And so what I did was I took a piece of, I guess you'd call it baling wire, we call it tie wire, but I took a piece of tie wire. Actually, it's a little larger than I can show on my screen. It was about 4 feet long, and I fed it down through the hole. I then took my lineman's pliers, and I just pinched and I twisted and I twisted and I twisted, and I made a coil to where it was just a flat coil. Think of like an electric stove. And then I took and I bent it towards the center, and I bent it straight up, and so I had a flat coil that was about as big around as a quarter, and then I had a wire coming up, and then I put my lock nut down onto it facing up, and I went ahead, and when I pulled it through, I couldn't get the lock nut centered, and I realized it's because where I turned up on the coil, where I turned and went up, it was interacting with the lock nut. So I pulled it all back out, and I wrapped it around, and I went the other way. So the coil was here, coiled up, and then I brought the guide wire or the tie wire around and up through, and so that way I just had a flat surface. And so I dropped my lock nut down on there, pushed it up through, dropped my connector on, pulled my wire through, and I just moved my connector around and kind of twisted until I kind of felt it grip, and I made sure to pull it tight so that way I could tighten it. And the cool thing was because it was a coil, the lock nut was held in place, so that way the lock nut wasn't able to travel around. And so I saved that, because we have about, I think, eight more doors on this pad to do. So that way it should make it easier, and hopefully by the end of this I get really good at it. So I was really happy for that bit of ingenuity. After that, I just had to do a little bit more prefab work. We had about 8 more sticks of 3/4 inch EMT that I had to cut into 30-inch sections. So I had to cut it into fourths, and after cutting it into fourths, I had to ream it, and then I had to put couplings on. And so the reason for this is when you're running block, or when you're putting boxes into block, you have to set, so you prefab a box, a mud ring, a connector, a ground stinger, and a piece of 30-inch conduit with a coupling on top. And the reason why you do this is because you can't just put a 10-foot stick sticking all the way up to the ceiling, because they have to get that block over the stick to get the block down. So, or to be able to get the block down. So you just do it 30 inches at a time. You go, you put a block in 30 inches high, they lift the concrete, or you put the box in, they put the block over the box, do that row, put the block on top of the block, put the next block on, and then they're about at the top of your 30-inch mark. Well, I guess it'd be about 2 blocks, but they're right at the top of your 30-inch mark, so you put 30 more. So that way they just have to lift up over that one, and you keep putting on 30 inches in a coupling, 30 inches in a coupling, and it costs you more money in couplings, but what it will do is it makes it easier for the blockers, so they don't have to go up and drop it down 10 feet every time because you're using 10-foot sections. And so I cut 40, it was less than 40, I cut about 32 30-inch sections of 3/4-inch conduit, and I reamed it. And then I put couplings on the end, tightened the couplings down. On my 1/2-inch, I put couplings on my 1/2-inch ones too. I cut 1/2-inch the other day, but I just put couplings on those. So on the 1/2-inch, I went ahead and taped them, because after you put the 30 inches on, you have to tape the coupling, otherwise concrete is going to get into that coupling. And so, which I actually am now realizing that I only taped the top of the coupling when I needed to tape the side of the coupling, because those couplings are concrete tight as long as they're taped. So I'll have to go back and do that tomorrow. I have about 30 1/2-inch couplings, and I can actually I definitely need to make up some more. But I've got about 30 1/2-inch couplings that I need to tape up. So on my 3/4-inch though, I don't have to tape the top of those because we have to pull string through them. The 1/2-inch are there for boxes that we're putting in the wall. The 3/4-inch are there for home runs, and so those are pieces of EMT that we already have stubbed up through the concrete, and so we're going to put 30 inches, but the only thing is we have string through there, and I'm not 100% sure what if the string is 100% necessary, because if it's for pulling, I feel like you could just feed a fish tape through. I don't know. I don't know. I've never done this. So after the whole process, I'll be able to judge whether or not the string is 100% necessary. I'm sure it is. I'm humble. I'm not going to just say that I know everything about this construction, because I don't. I'm definitely learning. But the 3/4, because they're home runs, they have string pushed through them. So I can't tape the top of the couplings on the prefabbed 30 inches, because then you would have to peel the tape off, pull the string through, put the tape back on, and so it's gonna save us, tape basically. There's no reason for me to need to put the tape on there, although I started to, and I was like, oh wait, no, we have to put on the string. So I'm trying to think through that whole process and make sure I said everything, because boy, I said a lot about it. That's it. Eventually we're going to have to sit and watch the blockers work, and every time they get to a point, we're going to have to put another 30-inch on there, tighten our coupling, tape it down, and then that way they can lift up over that one. And we're going to have to start doing it pretty high, because they're like 14-foot walls, and we're going up above 14-foot ceilings, and we're going up above the ceilings in some of them. Not in this building. Well, this building does have a gym, so it is going to be a lot higher. Anyways, tool of the day. This is a long video. There was a lot that happened today. I'm going to try and keep these videos short, but they'll find their length. I'm not stressing about it. But tool of the day is my newest tool, which is my impact wrench. It's a DeWalt 20 volt. I picked it up on eBay for $50, and I'm a big fan of it already. It came clean. I'm wary of eBay because I've never bought anything on eBay before, but it came clean, not a scratch on it. I checked everywhere. I even checked like the battery contacts, like inside here, like unless they just replaced all the plastics, which I guess is possible. But the thing is the thing I don't like about it is that it kind of stinks. Smells like when a vacuum cleaner when a vacuum cleaner starts to go bad. So, oh, my blade is loose. Anyways, so combination tool today is this, and then also my bit here. This is a conduit reamer bit, which I'm very thankful for, because there we go. Now you can see it. So I reamed conduit by hand the other day, and it killed me. And so this, what I would do is I would take my channel locks and I would squeeze down on the conduit. I would put this in, and I would just gun it, and it would just and it would ream it out. I would flip it over, flip my channel locks around so I was holding it the right way, and then I would do it again. And I was able to do 36 pieces of 3/4 inch in maybe a half hour, which is really fast, especially if you can compare it to hand bending. I'm sure I'm not gaining the arm muscle that I would otherwise be gaining, but it's like my arm is still sore from the other day of just reaming all day. And maybe I'm a baby, you know, but I reamed a lot that day. That's definitely the tool of the day today. I'm sure it's going to be the tool of the day in the future, because I worked my butt off, and I plan to do 4 years of videos, so something's going to have to double up on tool of the day. There are going to be some weeks where it's the same tool every day, but it's definitely this. $50. I picked it up on eBay. It's totally worth it. I think this was $25. One cool thing is right now it's got a square bit on it, but I can remove that and put another bit on it. But this is a number 2 square bit, which is the same square size that they use on coupling set screws. But if I was working with older couplings or different, or I could change it out to something different if I wanted to, but I don't think that I'm ever going to need to. I think that's it for the day, really. I'm not I think I covered it all in 17 minutes. I learned a lot today, and I wish I could have it all down on paper, everything that I learned, because we really did talk about a lot of new concepts and a lot of the process. I'm excited to see the process of these buildings coming together, and I like that I'm seeing 4 different buildings. I'll go into that a bit more because this video is getting long, but about the process of the building 4 buildings at the same time. But I'm out of here for the day. I hit 100 followers on Instagram today, which is pretty cool. I'd like to see that number just keep climbing, just because I post pictures throughout the day. You know, I'll sneak off for a minute and I'll post something and I'll make a caption, and people seem to like it. I do a lot. I take pictures as I go. So have a good rest of your day. I'll be back tomorrow on day 23.